Hey guys, this is Jason. We've been talking lately about what it takes to get your stripper clip to work. And a fellow named Josh Smith, the guy that does the fiber optic front sights for the Mosins, has put up a couple of videos on getting the actual stripper clip kind of dialed in so that it will feed pretty good. However, what I've also found is they're all over the board. We have over a dozen Mosins ourselves, and some feed well, some feed like, they're the worst. They won't feed at all. And believe it or not, the Tula manufactured Mosins were some of the stiffest and the hardest to get the strippers to feed into. So what we did, like I say, we got over a dozen of these rifles, and we took all 12, 13 of them I think we got now, and we fed the same stripper clip and the same set of bullets into each and every one. We found the two rifles that fed the best and the two that fed the worst, and almost not at all. You couldn't even get them to drop in the slot. And so what we did was we wanted to see what was making the two that were feeding the best work better than the two that were the worst. And so what we came up with was you can do the work to the clip, but then put it into several different guns, and they all feed different. So it's obviously in the gun, and we wanted to understand the mechanics of that and what was actually going on. So down in the rifle, there's the ejector interrupter and the ejector interrupter spring. And that's this little bar right in the side here. And then there's a little ledge, and when the empty or the spent casing comes back, that ledge catches there and on the lip of the end of the bolt, and it flicks the casing out. Well, that the back of that plate, right in this area here, there's a U groove that's been either hand filed or lightly ground when the gun was made. Well, that U groove is all different depths on every one of the ejector interrupters. They're not consistent between guns. Some are deeper, some are almost straight. So what we do is we pop it out, and we're going to work on that area a little bit there. Then the number one thing we found between all the guns is the little side spring, and I'll show you that in a minute when we pop the gun apart, that puts tension on this ejector. Well, like this one here, it's extremely stiff. It's almost difficult to push it in. Well, when you push the shells in through, when you get things lined up in the slot and you wash down in there, that plate actually has to push aside for every one of those round bullets to go by to get past there. And if it's extremely heavy, it's very difficult to get those to snap past that spring. That tension only needs to be enough to hold that in place and keep the shell from kicking up when the bolt's open, when you're shaking the gun or something crazy like that, just to keep it from flying out. So what we're going to do also is take that spring, and we're going to relieve some of that tension, so there's only a few ounces of pressure rather than pounds of pressure in there. And once that's done, you'll see that this thing will feed like a dream. Now we'll do this one to start with here. I haven't touched this one yet. This is a 43 laminate 9130. This one's pretty stiff, and so you get all your things fed. Generally you hold them here, and you get everything lined up, and then you push it down through. And the last ones are always stiff, and this is pretty typical of what it takes to get them in. And we all fight it, and if you're standing above it, usually you end up with a few cuts in the top of your thumb, and it's not cool. Now this stripper and one of my other rifles that we've already done our mods to will literally just feed in with a thumb. So it's not the clip. The clip has nothing to do with it in this case. It's the actual ejector interrupter that's causing us the grief. So we'll go ahead and get this popped open and get you going. The project's really easy to do. I think just about everybody can do it. It requires a few basic tools. Nothing special at all. We'll cover that right now. Get this back together so when we're done we can give it a try, get that out of the way. So some sandpaper, some 600, some 320, some 180 wet dry sandpaper for polishing up the sides of the ejector interrupter. Flathead screwdriver, a large one for your main parts, a smaller one in case you have to pull the spring out the side. I'll explain that. A rag to wipe things up, some gun oil when you're done. I like to use some Never-Dull to polish the interrupter when I'm through, and the side inside the receiver here that we're going to talk about. And then a pencil to wrap some sandpaper around to get in here and do some polishing. And then a Dremel to help open up with a little round grinding bit to help open up that little U shape, that crescent moon shape that's in the back of the ejector interrupter. So let's pop this apart real quick and show you guys. I already popped the handguard off this gun so that we weren't fighting the rings and wasting your time for that, but I wanted to show that it is very stiff gun to load right now, and we'll get the little cleaning up done and she'll be ready to rock and roll. Parts aside, set the stock aside. Alright, so you can see right here the ejector spring. When I push it, that's it right here from the inside. That's the actual slider. When I push it, you can see this spring. It's this flathead that holds the spring in this little groove, and this spring comes out here, and this little spring holds the tension. Well, this one's extremely stiff. So the first thing I do is just grab the spring. You're not going to hurt it, and you're going to pull back and relieve some of that pressure. Just try and bend it back a little bit and take some of the pressure off of, and get that thing where it's nice and soft. You want it to still fully seat that ejector deal, but you only want like maybe an ounce of pressure pushing it where it needs to be there. If you go too much and it's not seating all the way, that's not a problem. You pop this screw out right here, and then the spring actually slides forward and out. Grab it with some needles right here, put a little bend back in it, put it back in, put the screw back in it, and then try again. You're not going to hurt it. You just got to get it where this is fairly light instead of just being pressured in there like it was. So then go ahead and lift up on this, push the spring, and take it on out of there. And this is the actual ejector plate. So what we're going to do is, the area I was talking about, this sits in the gun just like this. Right here. Right in this side. That little sharp spot fits right in that groove. You can kind of see it there. So anyway, push this sucker up, pop it out. This right here is the area, and I'm pretty sure you can see that. That little area right there, right behind the catch that catches the shell to kick it out, or the casing, right behind there is that little crescent moon. And when you look at this, when it's sitting in the gun, the top edge is actually sharp. Sharp enough you can actually usually skin your fingernail with it. Well, that is literally where that bullet, when it goes down through, rubs. And if you just slide the casing along, you can see it digs right into it. And it actually, if you've done 10, 15 times the clips through, you'll actually see some of the metal shavings left right on this top edge. Well, that's keeping that from sliding in there well, and that's part of the problem when you're trying to get these to feed down. Now add this spring tension that's holding that tight as can be in there, and literally you're trying to push a sharp edge past that back of that rimmed casing there, past. It just digs right into it, and that's why they don't feed in smooth. So by lightening up the pressure here, and we'll do some work on that little edge there to round it up and polish it, now that part right there will slide right by this ejector plate without any problem. And the next thing is, down here in the side, if you also feed 10-15 of these clips through in a row, you'll find that on the other side in this, see if we can get you a shot, there's the pencil in there. Right here in this side, you'll see there's a little divot. So we can get you some lighting. Right in there. There's a little divot right in there, and that is where the other side of that, when this feeds down through, is rubbing on the actual receiver itself. It's just right inside that edge. You'll see the little divot in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap a little of this 180 around here. I'll go ahead and just do that one now to get us started. A little bit of sandpaper around this. You want it wide enough so that you can hang on to it. Just get it wrapped around there if I can. So it's just kind of like that. And then you just get down in this spot and just smooth up that area. And what you'll find is if you feed that 10 or 15 bullets through, that this side will actually have shavings of the casings again on the side. So you get in here and you just smooth this up right in that side. And it doesn't take but a couple of minutes. So 180 at first. What you're after is just knocking down the roughness to that. You'll see when you get yours open that there's some pretty rough milling marks in there. So just a little bit of work. Let's see if we can get that in the picture for you guys. You can see where I'm starting at. You can see it right in there. Just that area right there. Just start to polish that. You can see some shine showing up there, I'll bet you, already. And so just start with the 180. Then you'll grab us a piece of, this is just some 320. You just want to work down in grits. It only takes a few minutes, like I say, and makes a world of difference. Because to me, if that casing, when it's sliding down in there, if it's dragging enough to leave shavings in the gun, then that's drag that's keeping that from feeding down into there nice and smooth. And that's not going to fly. We want it smooth, nice, and it just needs to glide down into the gun. So get in here. Spend just a couple of minutes polishing that up. Rag and wipe it a little bit. And it just gets smoother and smoother all the time, which is exactly what you want. Kind of get some more in here. Just do your best you can to get that sandpaper wrapped around the end. And it's kind of a tight little tedious spot there to get into, but just get her polished up. Looking better already. And then I'll do the last little piece of some 600 grit. Then we'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. You want to use a small pencil, like a number 2 pencil with an eraser. I didn't have one with an eraser on it right now, so I just actually took and bent a flat spot in the aluminum top. The eraser was ripped off of this one. Just bent a flat spot, and that's the flat spot that I'm using to polish on this. Just a little bit of work in there. And that looks pretty good. And then a little bit of that Never Dull. This stuff's kind of a miracle to can. It has rust inhibitors and stuff like that in it. And I don't know, it just seems to make the surface, you know, kind of shine, the last little bit of shine, and it cleans things up. And I just use the same scenario. Just take your pencil and drop that little piece of that. It's like cotton. And this stuff's available in any auto parts section. It's just called Never Dull. It's a metal polish. Stuff's pretty amazing, actually. Using a lot of stuff to shine stuff up and polish it up. So just a little polishing with that. Like a rag. Try and get in there and just clean up that stuff. Alright, now let's see if we can get you a really good shot of what that looks like in there. How's that? I got the good angle there for him. You can see that area right inside of there. Just in there. And it's all nice and shiny now. Very smooth. No more burrs. Is that good there, Code? Right in there. Nice and smooth and shiny. Alright, so then that's it for that part. You've got your spring tension relieved. And you got the opposite side of the ejector interrupter polished up. So you set that aside. Now, this piece here has that little crescent moon shape right there. It's round on one side. They did a nice job there, but they didn't do the top side. Don't know why. They just didn't. Maybe they had it in their mind to do it the other way, and I don't know. But anyway, doesn't matter. What we do know is that some of these are much deeper on other guns. The ones that fed better had a deeper U right here than the ones that didn't. Now when you grind this, you got to be careful to stay away from this front edge. You want this sharp and nice right here, this little extractor edge. You want that shell to come back, hit that, and kick out. You don't want to round that off, so stay away from that. But right here in this area, go ahead and grind that down some. And it doesn't take much. You're going to shave off, you know, like a 32nd of an inch. Take your time. It's a pretty hard piece of metal. I suspect that if you did this with a hand file, it would take some time to do. And you see, I've done quite a few with this one here already. It's actually wearing on the grinding bit quite a bit. So we just smooth it up. And you'll be able to see now the shiny part. Didn't add a whole lot of depth to it, but a bit. The main thing you're after is just rounding that top edge. And I'm sure you can see on that very top edge, it's nice and round and smooth now. So when the edge of that, this sets in the gun like this, when the edge of that comes down and goes across there, you want it to glide past that edge, not be rough. So once that's done, back to the sandpaper again. Piece that 180. And I like to just go ahead and polish this surface up. Start out with a heavy. The grinder marks are pretty brutal. They're not nearly smooth enough. So sand it with some 180. Takes off a little. Then hit it with the 320. Like so. And over your round finger again, because it's a nice little round shape, you just polish right over it. This is 600 to kind of finish it up. And that puts a pretty darn good finish on it. Put it this way, it's smoother finish than anything else on your gun. I do the same thing to the triggers to smooth them up. So then when you're done, it's actually got somewhat of a shiny sheen to it. And you'll see it's a nice round top all the way around. It's nice and round and smooth. We didn't affect the front edge at all. we just made that little crescent moon shape a little deeper than what it was, and we rounded the top edge off. Now I take it, and I don't start out with a 180 on the sides, just a little 320, and I like to see on the sides, because if you feel this piece was stamped out, if you feel it, the edges are sharp, and you want this to be able to slide in that groove in the gun nice and easy. That way the spring tension can actually be a little less than what it would need to be if it was real rough. So just going to do this on both sides with some 320 just to get this thing nice and smooth. Then take a little 600 and finish it up. When you're done, you just end up with a nice plate like that. Again, the same little piece of never dull. Just polish up that plate real well. Get that groove nice and shiny. So all you're doing is deburn and cleaning things up for the most part. That sharp edge you've knocked off that in that little crescent moon shape. Wipe it all down. Any gunk or grit off. Everything's cleaned out in here. Make sure that area is nice and clean, no sanding grit left over. Okay, so that's the bulk of it right there. Then what you're going to do, push this all the way to, see if we can get that on. After you're done, hold this plate up like so. Slip it right back in its groove. And all the way back, and then back in the hole right there. And it goes all the way to the back right here in the rear of the groove. Then what you got, when you push, you'll find that when you push on this now, that it's nice and gentle. And you can actually hear it actually seat itself up where it belongs. But if you look in there, hopefully we can get a zoom on that for you. If you look right there, you can see where we've gone ahead and polished. You can actually see it shiny there now. And look, I can even depress it with the pen, the pencil. You couldn't do that before. This thing can hardly even move. And then so straight across from that half moon, on the other side, if we can get in there, I don't know if you can see it better there. Hopefully we got some shots where you can see it, is where I polished the other side. So now both sides, where the rimmed part of the cartridge slides down in, now have a smooth polished surface. And our spring tension's light enough that there's only maybe an ounce or so of preload against it. So that'll help hold the shell so it doesn't kick up when you shake the gun with the bolt open. And it's only enough to do the job it has to do in that, rather than having this super amount of preload that you're having to push back every time you put the strippers in there, and each shell has to push that spring back. So let me put this trigger pin back in. We'll throw a little oil on that. Ejector, interrupter. Just a couple of drops in here. To get enough in there to coat it. And then just wipe off everything from the surface so there's nothing extra floating around. And you'll find once you oil it, these things are just as slick as can be in there after you've polished both sides and all. I mean, it literally just works so smooth and nice, it's crazy. You'll wonder why it was ever not done. So then, we'll put it back in here, just to get a good handle on it. those up. All right. Put this one back in. So same as usual. Should be able to put this down in there and literally just have this feed in like a dream. And it does. We'll do that again. I'll put the bolt in. They even drop out easier. It's easier to work with all the way around. And angled up. Just like that. So you end up with that right there. Drop them in a slot and straight down in. And they drop in so much easier. And then one test so you know that you got your spring correct. You give it a shake here, and if this spring's not tight enough, that one will kick up. And then you just need to put a little more spring tension on there. But as you can see, that one's not flying out at all. They feed nice and easy. They drop out well. One more time. They drop right down in and they're just as easy as can be. You guys give this a shot. I know you'll be pleased with the outcome. It works so well, solves a bunch of problems, and you can make all of your Mosins load just the same as the first one does. And that's kind of nice when you're doing like the military shoots. We've all got a load in between, and it's nice to know that it's going to be able to load that stripper clip without a problem instead of fighting it the whole time, and that's a real issue. So yeah, very cool. Thanks for tuning in on this one. Hope you have some success and have a great day.